All right, so do you think churches should be regulated? Send us your comments and questions on WhatsApp to 072-110-5584, or you can give us a call on 010-596010. Now, we're joined in studio by Unity Fellowship Church's Pastor Irene Makuba and the South African Church Defenders Pastor Lucas Nkosi. Thank you to both of you for joining us. I also believe, ma'am, that you're also the chairperson of the South African Church's Defenders. Thank you so much to both of you for joining us. So the launch happened today, where the Section 22 has now been established by the CRL Commission. I believe, as the South African Church Defenders, you're against the formation of this committee. Perhaps, Pastor Makuba, you could just talk to us about your primary concerns regarding the establishment of the committee.
Thank you, Katlego. Before I go on, can I just say that my name is Pastor Mfariseni Makuba.
All right, we apologize for that.
Okay.
We will certainly change that, Pastor Mfariseni Makuba.
Thank you. As the South African Church Defenders, it is true that we are not for the regulation of the church. We are not supporting any regulation by the state. We don't want state interference in the church. There are many problems that are facing our country right now. The state can focus on those. As far as we know, the church is the only place right now where people run to when they've got problems. And as far as we are concerned, there are many things that are going wrong in many sectors. The state regulation will bring problems, because how can a person regulate faith? How can a human being regulate God? How can a human being regulate people's callings? That will be something that will be very wrong, because faith or beliefs are protected by our constitution. Once there is interference, there are going to be problems there.
So the CRL Commission chairperson, Ms. Togo Mkwanazi Xaluva, has said that this is not a move to regulate churches, but rather to restore some order in the religious sector. Why do you see it only as a regulation, as opposed to like what we've heard earlier, where Pastor Joshua Makoli said human rights of particularly children and women have been violated in the past, and this is a major concern and completely unacceptable, and is something that this commission is looking to resolve?
It is true that there are places where people are getting abused, and as church defenders, we are not for criminals. We don't support any criminality, and in fact we are saying that let the criminals be arrested. There is this blanket description that is used in order to define churches. Not all churches are doing wrong things, so we cannot just paint everybody with the same brush. Where there is criminality, let the law take its course. That is what we say, that where there are abuses, there are structures that are already in existence which are responsible to take care of such problems. Why do we need to add more laws? And the chairperson has said it before, that she wants the church to be regulated. So we don't know which is which, because today is regulation, tomorrow is another thing.
All right, Pastor Nkosi, maybe let's bring you into the conversation here, as you also stand with the South African Church Defenders. What do you believe in this reform process might infringe on the autonomy of churches?
Yeah, it's a problem, because it's a violation of the Constitution, for starters, especially on the freedom of religion, the freedom of association. And you know, there's this thing that is done in the CRL. They are speaking from both sides. It's like, you know, you remember that song, that sometimes you orange, sometimes you blue type of a thing. If you follow media statements by the chairperson, even from the previous administration where she was chairing the CRL, her messaging has been consistent, where the church is concerned to say, no, we are going to regulate. I remember in one of the interviews where they were speaking to Pastor Lesego, and then where she spoke of a box to say, you must belong to a box, and then called maybe a Christian box. If you step out of that box, then we will withdraw our license and you will have to be put to jail. And I remember in some, news agency where, an anchor asked her to say, but if a person starts maybe saying they have the calling of God, pitch up a tent outside and reaching out to people, what will happen to them? She said, without a license from an accredited umbrella body, you will be jailed. You'll go to jail. And even in another one, I'm talking across mainstream media outlets, another case where she was asked, but what about traditional healers? What about sangomas and so on? To say even those ones, no, we have issues with their advertising. They must just remove their adverts and people must come, like naturally, like in the past and so forth. So when it comes to pastors, they must be jailed. But other people who believes, differently, as like your traditional healers, no, it's a soft, hand to say, you just remove the adverts.
So do you feel that this is a charismatic churches versus traditional denominations that we're often used to?
Yeah, it's not exactly that. It's this bias within the CRL, towards, against churches, pastors, and so on, because of, like, in that report of theirs, the original one, the commercialization of religion and people's beliefs. You look into that document fully, so whatever that they are factoring in has a lot. The volume of that, report has more to do with churches, especially your charismatic churches. But you don't see content that is heavy on other beliefs. There are wrong things that we know. Abuses somewhere that are similar to the ones that happening in some of these churches that, they are used to emotionally, sensationalize the issues and so forth.
Right.
So, but you don't see that report on, there is a lot that is happening in traditional, whether it's Muslim, other churches and so on, but the target, and it's been consistent since 2015 on day one. It's always been about pastors, about charismatic churches. I mean, it's always been, we've seen Lesego Daniels and things like that.
Pastor Mukubo, I mean, you mentioned that there are elements of criminality in some churches, and then the law should take its course in those instances. In fact, the CRL commissioner speaking to Newzroom Afrika, rather the chairperson a little earlier on, said, in order to prevent some of these occurrences, she believes that these reforms would be put in place before the act so that people would only be experiencing some of the atrocities that they would experience in some churches and then go to the police, but that would have already been done. So how she explains the spirit behind the formation of the committee is a preventative measure. What's your take on that?
It's very difficult to believe that coming from the mouth of the same chairperson of CRL, who started by saying that if anybody says they hear from God, you should send them to a psychiatric ward. It is very difficult to believe such things, that the motive behind, given all the utterances that have been so consistent with regard to regulating the churches and especially pastors of charismatic churches. So it's very, very difficult that to believe that the motives are okay. We have heard quite a lot, which is consistent, and it shows that the chairperson is not, is biased. When she speaks about Christianity, she goes very, very hard. She bashes, she discriminates. That is what we have seen. So even the trust is no more there, because we know that the CRL is supposed to protect and promote all beliefs. So when you hear somebody who's entrusted with that work of promoting, of protecting, going like if you hear from God, you belong in a psychiatric hospital, and then the very same person goes for the charismatic churches, goes for the pastors only, do you really believe that that person is for the church? And given the thing that we will license you and we will put you in jail if you practice without a license.
Without a license.
Yeah.
Okay, we do have a caller on the line. Maybe let's just get some thoughts from our viewers. Dr. Max out in Sandton, a very good evening to you. What are your thoughts this evening?
Hello?
Hi, Dr. Max. Please give us your question or comment.
You see, am I on the line?
Yes.
You see, these churches must be regulated, really. I'm a doctor who has been in the field for over 30, 40 years. I have seen patients dying because they have been stopped to take ARVs. They have been stopped to take hypertension medication in the name of God. And the patients concur because they do what the pastor say, like they were eating grass. And those deaths that we see, that are not documented because we are governed. We are also regulated by the Health and Profession Council and other bodies and other professionals. They are not regulated by anybody. They are the law unto themselves. They have killed quite a lot of people, but we can't document it. We can't tell anybody because we are governed by confidentiality and secrecy. Quite a number of patients have died because they haven't taken their medication and they had said that they will be healed. Some of the miracles that they are claiming that they are doing, we end up with those patients after all.
All right, Dr. Max, thank you.
We are not, all in all to say that all the churches, churches or pastors are doing that. But majority of them, if you can look, I don't want to mention names, but they do it in the name of God. That is why they don't want to be regulated.
All right, Dr. Max, thank you so much.
We don't know where to report these cases.
Of course. No, it certainly does have an impact, Dr. Max. Unfortunately, we do have to take an ad break, just speaking there on the impact on the health system with regards to religious leaders being unregulated. Let's go for a quick ad break. We'll be back with more after this. All right, welcome back. The question we are asking you tonight is, do you think churches should be regulated? You can send us your comments and questions on WhatsApp 072-110-5584 or give us a call on 010-594-6010. We are joined in studio by Unity Fellowship Church's Pastor Mfariseni Mukuba, as well as the South African Church Defenders Pastor Lucas Nkosi. So we have a few of your WhatsApps, one from Chanchili Kota saying, greetings, we say no to church regulations. Section 22 committee consists of different churches with different doctrines, so there is no way they're going to be able to regulate the churches under one umbrella. If there is criminality under any church, the law should take its course. And then Evening Katleho, Anonymous is saying, I say no to church regulations. Who wants to regulate God? The SA government is now turning against God. This country will be controlled by terrorists. Why church and not traditional healers? And another one also saying, hi Katleho, and guess why only the church? When are they regulating the sangomas and witch doctors? We hear of cases of abuse in those places, but nothing is being said. That is from Anonymous. So before we took our ad break, we spoke to Dr. Max out in Sandton, and she was saying that churches are a law unto themselves, saying that patients are not taking medication under the instruction of churches, and this becomes a burden on doctors. Your response to that, Pastor Mukuba?
It goes back to painting everybody with the same brush. It is not fair to say that. You cannot just label and say that just because one traditional healer is not doing the right thing, then all of them are murderers or they are rapists or they whatever. Just because one person or one politician is bad, then everybody is bad. That is not fair at all. Because really, if there are people who are contributing to the death of others by giving them wrong advice, let them be reported. Let them be reported so that people can take accountability. Not just saying everybody is doing it. Because I'm a pastor. I don't do that.
Pastor Nkosi, I mean, we saw many of those WhatsApps agreeing with you that you can't regulate God. Is it also a matter of government being the ones wanting to regulate the religious sector?
Yeah, because CRL is part of the state. So it's state, and this is something I've also raised in Parliament and in the fora where we met with the CRL, you know, especially on what Dr. Max was saying. This argument is as old as 2019 where we met the CRL. I remember the previous deputy chairperson raised the matter in a forum where we had in Tshwane, saying, but now, would you believe that doctor? You know, your child from next door saying, I'm a doctor. And the next thing I said, okay, is that old argument again about sectors having, I mean, in Parliament, when I raised it, I said, but you are dealing with religion. Religion is a different ball game altogether. Medicine is science. If you study an eye in UKZN, you study an eye at UJ or VETS and UCT, you are dealing with the same eye.
But is the argument not necessarily in how you practice your religion, but rather the regulation, because the CRL speaks about not leaving the sector in the hands of unregistered and unvetted religious leaders in the protection of those congregants?
But how does registering, where does it feature?
So that we're able to identify you.
But yes, registering anyway, it's an administrative thing. But the point now that she's driving is beyond that. It's a doctrinal thing, although now and then between herself and the CEO, one day it's not about doctrines or what people believe. The next thing, oh, but what do you believe? You know, I mean, people do what they do based on what they believe.
So the committee has been established, and it comprises of a whole myriad of what they call cultural and religious experts. Is there a reason why you felt not to become a part of the committee so that you're able to influence that which the committee would be coming up with, particularly the reforms that should be protecting the congregants?
Yeah.
Part of the committee in what way?
Of joining the committee. Was there a selection process in terms of the committee?
That is what we are also surprised about.
Okay.
We don't know how the committee came about.
So you're not aware of how the selection process took place in order for those who formed part of the committee to sit on the committee?
Yeah, can I come
Pastor
in?
Nkosi, yes?
On that, we were bad. It's like, you know, handpicked. People were selected. Some of us were stopped from stopping there because there's this tendency with the CRL where they are looking for people because they are pushing their agenda, a particular narrative. And so every person who has a descending type of approach to that, they make sure that they stop you from there. And there's a lot, you know, of deception that they've been peddling over years, even through mainstream media, using this sensationalism with people's problems to push this narrative. Because here's something about this thing and why we are strongly opposed to it, is because faith, there are some faith that are opposed to each other. And now you need a standard to regulate even lawyers and so on. The reason lawyers are regulated, they are using the same law. And then in their practice, whatever profession, medicine, they are using the same standard. But where faith is concerned, what standard are you going to use? Because somebody believes that they can speak to the dead, to their dead mother. And I say, hey, what are you doing with the dead mother? It's a strange thing to me. Mina, I trust in the living God. And somebody said, where's your God? The God of the Jews and so on. What standard are you going to use? Even if you said you want to regulate. And what is it exactly that you want to regulate? Because of all these other things, every time they are coming up to say, but we want to regulate. Why do you want to regulate? It's because somebody was raped, somebody is being abused. And so those are crimes. And even if they achieve what they want to achieve, to say, oh, have what you are saying, what are those people going to do? What are those religious bodies going to do? To say, if somebody comes up with a rape case, to say, I've been raped by a pastor so and so, and therefore, what should It's outside the competence of the pastors to say, now we are dealing with rape cases. Our thing as pastors, when cases like that come, we report them to say, man, you did not comply with the word of God. Clear in scripture, if you commit a crime, man, is anti the word of God. We take you to the police because it's even God who established, that the lawless must be dealt that way. And as for regulating, the scriptures are there to regulate those who believe in the Christian faith.
Right.
Yeah.
So you do not believe completely in the spirit of what the Section 22 is looking to do. So even if you were invited to sit on this committee, you would still decline?
Okay.
If we were invited to participate.
In the committee, yes.
Sometimes you need to educate people that you are dealing with. I believe that the CRL has got that responsibility to educate people on what they're doing. So far, we don't even understand what they're doing because what we hear is what we see on media, where the chairperson all the time is badgering on pastors. That is what we see every day. So it is very important that they do their part in educating pastors, in educating religious communities on what they are doing. Because so far, we don't even understand because it's very confusing. When you go and you read, you will find that their mandate is to protect, their mandate is to promote. But when you listen to what they are saying on media, it's very, very different.
All right. We do have another caller on the line, Nolutando in Johannesburg. A very good evening to you. What's your thought on our question asking, should churches be regulated this evening?
Yes, good evening, ma'am. I think it is proper that churches must be regulated in the light of what is happening in South Africa, that all the crooks saw religion as soft target. But we can't be led by blind. We need to be led by people who understand what is church. A church is the body of Christ. You are called by God. If the chairperson says people who are hearing from God are mad, they must be checked, then we've got a problem. The constitution of religion or Christianity is the Bible. It must be regulated. Churches must be regulated. Those who are saying they are called, they must be regulated scriptural. Like there must be a body who looks at it. If it's individual churches that do not have bodies that they report unto, those people must be interviewed and be given a license. People who understand spirituality, by people who know we are in flesh, but we are not of this world. We operate spiritually. But regulation, I agree. This is being exploited by crooks and hijacked. It must be regulated. But the principles must be based on the Bible.
Thank you so much, Nolutando out in Johannesburg. Pastor Nkosi, I saw you reacting there to Nolutando. She's saying that exploiters are really taking advantage of the system. What's your take on her response?
Yeah, now you even heard what Nolutando was saying. It's exactly what I've been saying.
That the Constitution is the Bible is the Constitution of the church.
No, that the law is there to say reason we want to regulate is because people are crooks. Once you say crook, you are talking Criminal Procedure Act. You are talking court and the law. But in terms of faith and belief, what are you going to regulate? There's some funny thing, a funny concept. I heard even Professor Tulu raised it up in some former interviews about spiritual abuse. What is spiritual abuse? It's like pastoral rape, your pastoral thief, a pastoral extortioner. Let's not, put adjectives, like pastoral, spiritual. If an abuser is an abuser, it doesn't matter what the label they choose to wear. Whether it's a pastor, that's why you have pastors in jail, you have doctors, medical doctors in jail, you have lawyers in jail, you have everybody is in jail. And some people even suggest to say maybe it's because of educational thing. if it's education, that let's educate the people, maybe they'll improve, then we must have all the uneducated people only in jail. So, yeah.
So what I want to ask you, Pastor Nkosi, it's specifically to the issue of regulating. I mean, if you look at traditional denominations, even within Christianity, you'll find the Methodist Church, the Anglican Church, the Roman Catholic, they all would still have a body that almost regulates that particular denomination. There would be structures, there would be a hierarchy, and there would be a certain order of how things should be done. Can that be done for charismatic churches?
Yeah, those things are available in charismatic churches. And here's an interesting one. You know, we were in Parliament debating such things. You know, Umam Kalova has, you know, publicly declared that she's a member of the Wesleyan Church.
Yes.
You know, her body, her church, which is supposed to regulate her, agrees with our position to saying that, okay, if people is saying CRL should just play an educational role, and Wesleyan Church is willing to educate on governance and so on, because those are governance systems and so on. It's an educational, it's a skills development thing.
Okay.
But they said at Parliament in March, in that forum, they said that, but to impose this on everybody, it will be impossible. Even SACC
has
majority.
We have run out of time. Sorry, Pastor Nkosi, I just want to get just the last thought from you, Pastor Mukubi, in terms of what then do you think would foster a constructive dialogue between yourselves as the South African defenders, as well as just ensuring that you are able to find a way that is best in the interest of the congregants?
I believe that if the CRL is going to work with the church, the CRL has to consult the relevant structures, not just some people that they pick for themselves. And there can be those dialogues that can take place. As far as criminality is concerned, as it was said, there is no pastoral crime and a crime by a man outside the church. A crime is a crime. The church cannot be blamed for the failures of our structures that we have in our country, like the NPA, the courts, and everything else. The church cannot be given the job of Home Affairs, cannot be given the job of SARS, cannot be given the job of all these other structures. The failures that we have in our country have to be dealt with the people who are concerned.
Right.
The problems of the country cannot be given to the church to say, is the church, is the church.
Okay, all right. We're going to go for a quick ad break, and when we do return, we'll be hearing from the Section 22 Committee Chairperson, Reverend Musa Kulu. But in the meantime, thank you so much to both Pastor Nkosi as well as you, Pastor Mukubu, for joining us this evening. Thank you so much for your time.